We're talking about Hannibal Season 3, Episode 10, and the woman clothed in the sun on Dish by Dish. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet's real pal Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from the Baltimore Institute for the Criminally Insane. This is the Dish by Dish podcast. It's an offshoot of Kill by Kill, where we watch an episode of Hannibal and then we talk about it. And of course, there's only one person I trust that if I show her this wonderful painting that was done even maybe with a few chalks, she'll knock me out and eat it as fast as she can. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How you doing today, Gina?
I actually wrote down a question I wanted to ask you in regards to this episode. So why don't we just go ahead with that?
Okay, go for it.
So what painting would you eat in order to gain its power?
Oh, this is a very good question, Gina. And of course, you can hear in my voice that I'm vamping. A known lover of the arts, such as myself. What would I choose to steal its power? I do love the Andy Warhol, the 4-color version of Bela Lugosi. I do feel like that has a lot of coolness that I'd like to grasp onto. Not so much the desire to shoot up heroin until I die, but there's a lot of cool energy going on in that particular lithograph.
Now, see, I used to have a velvet Elvis painting in my first apartment. That was lost too many moves. I'm sure that your 20s were were the same thing where you acquired a lot of things. I have many
heirlooms from my 20s, Gina.
Yeah, you acquire and then you lose over the course of moving from apartment to apartment. I would like that painting back so that I could consume it.
You're right. So that you could have the energy of the Baz Luhrmann.
Oh yeah. I mean that kid, you see that kid? What a performer. My goodness. No, but seriously, have you seen Elvis yet?
Yes, I have. I very much enjoyed it. I mean, even though the first 10 minutes I was like, I don't know if I can handle this not ending soon. I'm truly losing my grasp on. It was like I was spinning off of the earth. But eventually it did settle in. It is an incredible performance. I do think it's an amazing film. I do think it is not necessarily touching the reality that is Elvis. It is more a mood piece of Elvis, as Elvis had a much more complicated relationship with the black musicians that he constantly stole from.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that they sort of brush past, but I think just for pure spectacle, it's really probably the people keep using the phrase "movies are back, baby." Well, that's like that definitely that no movie is more back, baby than Baz Luhrmann's Elvis.
It backed up a whole truckload of movies into the movie theater. It is absolutely trying and often is succeeding. It is a dizzying lead performance. Tom Hanks is at his most confusing. And
I like how he says Santa Claus.
It is a real attempt.
You know what? I leave Dad alone. He's at a point in his career where he is making some interesting choices, where he is playing Colonel Tom Parker and Geppetto in the same year. I God bless him. I just hope he spends the second half of his career just doing the weirdest shit and making a meal of all of it.
Yes, I mean, that is it's one of those things where I've never heard Colonel Tom Parker talk, so I don't know what my expectations were, other than he was going to like twirl a mustache and probably come off like Mark Twain in a one-man Broadway show. And so I was quite stunned to hear this random Dutchman waddle onto stage as if this was the first draft of the Batman's penguin makeup and just lure a man of talent into a long-term contract in which he just steals money from him and no one says shit for decades. Like Elvis, for all his talent, criminally fucking dumb.
When he comes into that scene wearing that Christmas sweater, I'm just like,
oh my god,
that's cinema, baby. I will watch all the outtakes of this. I will watch the 6-hour long director's cut. Give me more. Force feed me Elvis.
Regina, we're snowmen, you and I. Only we understand what it's like to talk about Hannibal.
You got to sing the Santa Claus. What were we talking about again? Hannibal? I don't know.
The Santa Claus. Then he had all these fucking knickknacks like a goddamn loser. Oh, God.
Hey, I have you know, I am currently sitting in a room next to a shelf full of knickknacks. So...
the only reason I'm not is because my house is so tiny. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't begrudge you. I don't begrudge anyone. But when I see everyone online, particularly in the circles online that we run in, when they have this entire goddamn wall of Blu-rays and whatever the fuck, and you're like, that sounds great, but my house mainly consists of windows. So I don't have places to display shit. It's like we choose one piece of art and you're like, we're done for a decade. Everything else has to be hidden, baby.
I have this cardboard box full of pop dolls, and every once in a while I'll just rotate them through the one that could, the one single doll that could fit on my desk.
There you go. Yeah. Like Gina was like, I love that you have this thing that you want to collect these horror movies, but I do have a practical question, and that is, where the fuck are you going to put them? And I was like, well, I'm gonna come up with a creative solution. So I got one of those giant, what looks like a cinder block that you put discs into with little file folders, and they're full. It's fucking full. I think there's 400 slots in the fucking thing, and it's gone, baby. I'm moving on to number 2.
Well, who told you to buy the DVD in pieces?
Well, here's the problem. The pieces is a 3-disc. It came with the 4K, the Blu-ray, and I believe the soundtrack, which honestly, I do want to own, because if there's anything you want to own from Pieces, it's a soundtrack, so that you have something behind you when you get stoned and fuck on a waterbed, because that's the best sex of your life.
Speaking of best sex of your life.
It's the kind of sex that will send you roller skating into a plate glass window.
I was going to say, speaking of best sex of your life,
sexually arouse someone.
Let's talk this episode of Hannibal. Because
again, does any other show on television have better orgasms than Hannibal?
I'm a little self-conscious, because it's like, I've had some good sex, but I mean, I haven't had my body separating itself and melding together with the other person. I mean,
I haven't bifurcated psychedelically and traveled through altered states while my penis has been in someone else. I mean, it's been great. Don't get me wrong. Like, sex, awesome. I high recommend for everyone who has the desire and the permission from the other party or parties. But have I mind melded with someone who is using the spice and transporting me across time? Not so much. And maybe that might be a me problem, that maybe I'm not good enough to do this. Maybe I'm in my head. I don't know what maybe I'm on the wrong drugs. Maybe I'm not on the right drugs. But holy shit. Like, if you're having that good of sex, don't you think at that point you're like, you know what? Maybe I don't need to kill families. But no, Francis is still in this game, baby. That was a nice distraction, but it's not keeping me from my main goal.
Well, I feel like the kind of the breaking point was she's like, that was great, but I gotta go home now.
Listen. I'm not complaining about the dick, but it's also not the dick. So thank you very much for touching a tiger with me. That was great. Thank you for recovering from your immediate orgasm to have a much better orgasm. Or that the subjective nature of the sex in Hannibal is not necessarily the feelings of those two people, but how everyone behind the scenes making Hannibal in and of itself is like, this is kind of how we imagine sex is, and we shouldn't be taking it so literally. I don't know which one. But it turns out like Francis, for a guy whose latest conquests have been knifed to death with mirrors in his eyes, he does okay in round 2.
Yeah, and it's interesting because at least in the book, it sort of implies that it's his first time. And they don't make that apparent here. I think you just kind of like, he's just so awkward and so uncomfortable, with anybody that you can't really see other than, perhaps paying a sex worker, which is probably just a unpleasant experience for everyone involved. That, what circumstances, might have led him to be able to, enjoy sex before, in as much as he's capable of enjoying anything. But yeah, and that's honestly a kind of a trope though. Like, if your first time, somehow it's spectacular and everybody's having multiple orgasms and, everybody knows what to do, just, like they've been doing it their whole lives,
Well, that's something we kind of branched into in the last episode, that this version of Francis Dollarhide is a little bit of a Born Sexy Yesterday, where he's just unknowing about so many things in the world. And yet when he needs to hot wire a house to make a phone call, like, he has that down. Like he doesn't have to look at a tutorial on YouTube. He just knows how to do it.
Also, I want to know, and I want to know how he was able to talk this zoo into letting him bring someone in to touch an unconscious tiger. Like,
yes.
all I'm thinking is, my God, the insurance. Like, there's no possible way that like, who were his connections at the zoo that he was able to? Here's a fun date. Let's go touch a tiger.
Yeah. And if that is your prerequisite for having the sex of your life, is that you've got to coordinate your second date with somebody to when a tiger is having a dental procedure done, so that you can have your hopeful sex mate touch that tiger in such a way that by the time they reach the mouth, you're jizzing in your pants, so that a couple hours later you can again jizz in your pants, and then you can have sex. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of.
I just to do a quick compare and contrast of this scene, how it's done here and how it's done in Manhunter, because Manhunter, because as we mentioned, this one is following very closely with both the book and Manhunter. Like, it's, the only one of the primary differences is when Hannibal Lecter cons someone into giving him Will Graham's home address. Instead of asking her to look on a Rolodex, he asked her to look on a computer. Yeah. That's like the only time that they updated it.
Yeah, I was because it was matching so closely. I was thinking, is he going to say Filofax?
Yeah,
he's so close to saying it.
And I don't remember how the scene was done in Red Dragon. But
here's the thing, Gina, I watched both of them, but continue and then I'll go back.
Okay, so I like the way it was done better in Manhunter, because he's sort of standing in the background, and she's and like the veterinarian is guiding her through touching the tiger, which
and the veterinarian thinks, like, I think there's a look on his face like, oh wow, I'm surprised that Francis has such a hot date. but I'm just going to like roll up. Like he kind of cucks Frances a little bit. He's right behind her. Like he's like guiding her.
Right. And which would seem to be the, the logical thing to do. Whereas the veterinarian here just kind of steps back like, oh, I'm going to let you two just do your thing. I'll be back in a little while. Call me if you need anything.
Yeah.
And so
we drugged up this tiger, but I got a smoko that I got to hit. So
Frances,
you do you.
So Frances sort of just stands in the background and watches her and is very emotionally moved by her reaction. At one point he like looks like he's almost swooning, which I really like how that's done. And, all praise to Tom Noonan for, that's as close as he gets to being really emotional in this role. Yes. Whereas here he's sweating, he's licking his lips, he's like kind of crouching down and watching her. And it's like, okay, I know she can't see you, Frances, but surely she can sense that you're right there. And he's kind of amping up the creepiness a little too much.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like in Manhunter, it's not that Noonan isn't creepy. He absolutely is. And holy shit, the shirt that he's wearing, he should be arrested.
His date outfit. Yeah.
His date outfit is
it's like a disco shirt.
Right. Remember the one guy who had to watch Arnold Schwarzenegger on the airplane? He ends up getting his neck broken.
Yes.
He's literally dressed like that guy.
Yeah, and Francis usually gets his clothes. That very much gets his clothes. The Salvation Army.
Yes, it is bizarre, but yeah, he's in the back corner, literally like touching the face of God. And the way it kind of lays out, obviously, the big advantage of both Manhunter and Red Dragon is they're both using real tigers, and in here you can kind of tell it's a bit of a prop where they're making the lungs move, which is fine. You don't need a real tiger; it's fine. But in Manhunter, Reba reaches for along the side of it. She kind of goes from the center to the left where the mouth is, and that's where you get the first big reaction shot from Frances. But then I'm going to listen to the heart by putting my whole head on the tiger's body, which I imagine would be quite a transcendent experience. It's for a movie that is very primary color driven. That sequence is very Miami Vice washed out greens and pinks. The same is very true of Red Dragon, because obviously the director of that film has no original ideas and is simply trying to mimic every component of Manhunter he possibly can. And so there's no tiger mouth touching. It is all heartbeat focused. She's amazed at this, and of course, again, a transcendent experience. But there are two other physicians in the room while she's doing it. And now you get to the Hannibal version, and they've pumped up the colors here. The background goes all black, as is kind of the theme for this season. You don't get a lot of depth of field here. Everything is very present. The oranges of the tiger are practically neon, as I guess we're seeing it through Francis's eyes, and he even says the orange of the tiger is emanating like it's changing the colors of the world around it. And so that sort of psychedelic thing. And then once she reaches the mouth of the tiger, it's Francis goes, oh, in the background.
Yeah, he's not very much in control of his faculties.
No, he just absolutely fucking loses it. And I guess this gets down to the main question of every version of this, which is, if this is both a date in the conventional sense, but very much a test to see if Reba has it within her to, I don't know, touch something dangerous, because he is dangerous. And I guess, if she can get through this, then, she can try to give me a blowy on my couch. And when I fail that, then I will pick her up like fucking Tarzan and carry her off.
We compared her before to Frankenstein's monster, which is what he is. I mean, he's practically doing like the stick walk, like clump, clump, clump.
Yes. And it's the second evocation of Frankenstein in this very episode, because Will calls Bedelia the bride of Frankenstein. Oh yeah, Will's earlier in the show.
Will's in full bitchy mode in this. He's so judgy. I really dislike what they do to him in the second half. I mean, he really kind of thinks that, you know, the bizarre and dangerous relationship he had with Hannibal is so different somehow from you know, the one that Bedelia had with him and the one that Alana had with him. And he's just like, you know, it's like, oh, well, what makes you think you're so good? I'm like, well, what makes you think you're so good after all this? You know?
Yes, I don't like. For 2.5 seasons, he's been like, I don't know if I'm all that cool, and I think it's kind of dangerous to make me do this. I don't really want to. And here he sweeps in with like a capelet, and he's like, oh, you think you're so awesome? I know you're lying. Like, why are you being such a bitch? I don't understand this. I mean, it's a choice, and it's a very different choice from any other Will we've seen in any other version. So I get it, because we've been more invested in his journey, but it does feel slightly out of character for me.
I think a lot of it does actually come down to jealousy. He doesn't like discovering just how many people that Hannibal had this, you know, really intense, codependent, you know, I'll get in your head and, you know, make you do my will relationship with a lot of people.
Right.
You know, I mean, who knows
about this?
Who doesn't want to think they're, you know, they're the primary, if not only, love of someone's life. And then when you found out that there have been you find out there have been others, or, you know, it raises your hackles.
He wants to be a main character energy. And when he discovers that he is another chapter, he's very upset about it. And he treats other people in a manner that's not going to get him what he wants. I guess if maybe it had been done in such a way, and of course, ultimately, this is a great show and I love watching it. Please do not take this as any sort of, oh, Hannibal's wrong and I could have done it better, or any of that bullshit. But I think it's possible that if this had been the opening of season 4, after, you know, more stuff had gone on, I think it would have been easier to have seen that transition. But ultimately, it feels like more like I didn't learn anything from season 1 or 2. And I'm bitter about it.
Right. It's just a weird, he's sort of acting too much like a bitchy, jealous ex.
Yeah. And that, I guess, you know, the Francis Reba portion of this particular episode is very lifted from the book. And then to sort of stretch it out a little bit, and I don't say stretch it out in the sense that, you know, there's an off-camera stage manager, you know, pulling his fingers apart off stage, like, we don't have 43 minutes. They return to Bedelia and what she's been up to, which is having black box theater readings of her time, quote unquote, have been drugged and psychologically tortured by Hannibal when she was in fact an active participant in it. And then going into more detail of her relationship with Zachary Quinto's Neil Frank, because we had kind of heard about it in season 1, seen the end moment of it early in season 3, and then we kind of get a lot of buildup to it here. And again, I feel like going full Just Before Dawn is a real wild ass swerve.
The way this scene plays out is so remarkable. Like I guess Hannibal has done something to him that he, like, when he gets very upset, he starts choking. So, he's in, extreme distress. He falls down. Bedelia, I guess you're supposed to assume like his tongue has fallen back into his blocking his airway. So she sticks her hand into his mouth to try to clear his airway, and she's like, you know what, fuck, I'm just gonna see how far this thing goes.
I didn't think my hand fit into your mouth. I'm just gonna see. Like, this is weird, right?
She just does it. She just does it.
Well, let me make sure it's full clear. Yeah, just reach all. Let me get elbow deep. Let's see if we can't clear up this problem. Maybe it's like a plumber. I just go in there and remove the clog, and then you're good to go.
Just a Bowser from Shauna, full fist in the mouth and all the way down. Like, I'm looking at my hand. I don't have a very large hand, and I do not know if there's anybody that I can just simply and she doesn't do a lot of force. She just kind of like, okay, there we go. Now we're down his throat, and it's like, I don't know if that's possible.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I think she's as surprised as anyone else. I mean, here's Gillian Anderson does this incredible thing where it's set up. She tells Will, people have an evolutionary response to seeing something in distress, and one would be to put it out of its misery, and the other is to mother it back into health. And my first instinct is often that I would just kill it. I don't do that, but that's an instinct I know about myself. So one assumes this was an instinct that Hannibal knew and thought, what if I, as he's wont to do in his wankery way, what if I put these two paths together and see which way she pulls the lever of the trolley? And she fits her hand inside his mouth, and she's like, oh, okay. Well, how about a little bit further? And then you get the inside his neck shot, which I did not remember. Again, some of this seems to have been memory hold. 2013 must have been one fucking interesting summer for me, because I don't seem to remember shit. And her eyes light up like, oh.
This is what it feels like to
goes
kill.
All the way fucking down. Yeah. So like, I didn't think I would get to my elbow. And yet, here we are. I guess I'll just pull out now. And then she has a fainting couch moment because she's also had an orgasm, I guess, of a way down this dude's throat. Fisting this man to death.
Yeah, I mean, essentially,
it's not the way I want to go.
She kind of raped him to death.
Yes. And it's a transcendent experience, and when that rattles her, and of course we see the aftermath of that over and over again. But it's kind of like, listen, I didn't know what I was capable of, and then I was put in a situation where I discovered what I was capable of, and then I came to terms with it, and I'm okay. And if that means that I have to tell a little white lie in terms of my participation in and Hannibal Lecter's European vacation, fine, so be it. I get the ticket sales. I still get to keep my house. She seems to have come out of this very, very well.
Yeah. I mean, worked out for her.
Yeah, sure did. And of course, the other component about this, she puts on a little show in which she insinuates that Dante was the first NIMBY. Then he's like, this is the way hell is, baby. And of course, she evokes the fact that it was before Dante, no one had come up with the idea, or at least vocalized it, that instead of the gates of hell was the mouth of hell, which of course she ends up putting her whole forearm into a little bit later on.
And then
not subtle.
And then, it ends with someone literally eating a painting.
Yes. And that's like a big scene in the book. Not really. I don't remember that in Manhunter.
It's not in Manhunter. It is in Red Dragon, though.
Yes. What and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe in Red Dragon he and Will collide, whereas in this version Will happens to be there moments after he's begun his happy meal of this painting, and he confronts him in the elevator, and Francis just again picks him up like Tarzan and choke slams him into the back of an elevator. Will is out of his league when it comes to a physical confrontation with Francis Dollaride.
I mean, he really is out with everybody. Will gets tossed around like a rag doll.
Yes. And he's had his fair share of serious injury. Like, it's a kind of a miracle he's not walking around with a cane. So the fact that he gets, tossed out like yesterday's trash or the saber-toothed cat in the Flintstones at the end of every episode, it's not surprising. I don't know how Francis makes it out of there. But once you eat a painting, you're not keeping your reign of terror on the down low. Like, you're very much exposing yourself to, you're in the end game.
Right, exactly.
It's both, all this stuff kind of has to happen, and all the Bedelia stuff is very interesting, but it does feel like a little bit of a placeholder episode where it's like, well, these things have to happen in order for the rest of the show to fall into place.
If you are watching, and it's your first time watch, you've hit a run where we've you've gotten more into the psychological stuff than the really over the top death scenes. I mean, granted, you have a woman putting her entire arm down a dude's throat, but most of this is more like just people getting into each other's heads in a really unsettling way.
Yeah. And thank goodness they dusted off the mothballs of the old Hannibal psychology suite. So we get to see all those very tall ceilings and window treatments yet again.
Just so elegant, elegant.
Yeah. I think, if you're into this section and you want to just watch all 6 of these episodes in a row, I think that is the best way to do this, to just go for it and, mash all the way through them rather than taking them necessarily one at a time. It probably comes off a little bit better that way, rather than the episodic nature of, weekly television. That being said, it's gorgeous as always. The music is histrionic and out of control. And who doesn't love a orgasmic, psychotropic, just Mr. Toad's Wild Ride,
a sexy lava lamp.
Oh my goodness. And of course we could choose our own death venture, but only one person dies unless you count that painting. So would you rather be eaten, or would you rather have Bedelia's fist down your throat?
Oh, no. I mean, am I already dead when I've been eaten, or is someone like tearing off little pieces of me and just
that painting was never alive, so I'm assuming that you have simply been living under plastic for a while.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. There's no way I'm taking that fist down the throat. No. That feels like a very bad way to go. Although, Jillian, if you're still into it, I'm kind of willing. I mean, if it's Gillian Anderson, I don't know. I'm willing to talk.
She probably smells amazing. So, I mean, if she probably smells like lilies or some kind of really high-end French perfume. Right. And, I guess if I just kind of close my eyes, just, take a sniff, I'll be like, okay.
Yeah. And then, like, when people are going to talk about it, there's like, how did he die? Gillian Anderson stuffed her entire forearm down his throat. And he's like, what a way to go. You know?
I was going to say, Gillian Anderson fisted him to death. Whoa, that's hot.
Weep for him. In this economy, that's a great way to go.
That lucky bastard.
That'll just about do it. Don't worry, folks. The body count will continue. For myself and for Gina. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.